Hello and welcome to another episode of The Advantage. I'm your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, and on today's show, we are doing another episode of Check Ball, where we talk about the hottest topics in the NBA this week. We have a great list of topics to discuss on today's show. We got two LeBron topics to cover. His fourth quarter comeback against the Clippers and eclipsing 40K as a career threshold. This is a weekly show, so the most impressive thing the King did this week was that fourth quarter comeback against the Clippers. But we'll also talk about that career accomplishment of reaching the 40K milestone. The Heat and the Warriors are surging into the second half of the season. Which one of these teams do we trust more? Allen Iverson is getting a statue at the practice facility in Philadelphia. We have to take 20 seconds to acknowledge the elite level of troll job happening by the Philadelphia 76ers. At the practice facility? You put the statue at the practice facility? We will have to break down all of that and more. We have some individual game performances like Strus's game winner and Wemby and Chet part 3. Finally, we got some topics from the audience that we will hit. All of that and more on today's episode of Check Ball. Let's get it started.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Cause I'm loud in the blunt, yeah. I do and say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny and tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me and my mama's healthy. That's all that I need.
All right, before we get started, let me remind everybody to rate, review, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. If you are watching this on the Fantasy Basketball International YouTube channel, make sure you check out the FBI website and Discord channel as well. If you are playing fantasy basketball, you are about to reach the playoffs, and you could use their resources to help you bring home the dubs. In other news, follow me on Twitter at FiddlesPicks. Sign up for the Substack, which is now in the banner of this video. And let's bring in the best guest that we have every week, AV, joining us. AV, I didn't even prepare a new podcast title for you this week. I screwed up.
Yeah, you got so much going on in your life these days. My promotions are low on your list. Maybe I'm such a regular now that will give me a steady job, and you don't have to call me into the office for a promotion once a week.
I was just so amazed at you bowling a 219 last week, and I didn't know if I could up pins as an.
I'll stick with pins. Pins works for me for a while. I mean, you asked me last week what felt the best, being in the zone, basketball, tennis, or bowling, and I had the hottest shooting night of my recent years recently, and it's basketball forever. I'll never leave basketball. 219s, don't care. It's about hoops.
Okay. Quickly, before we get into these topics today, let me just sidebar one other topic that we need to discuss. A few weeks ago, me and you talked about that LeBron James and Bronny card that they both had their signatures on, and we talked about how much would we buy it for? What is this piece of memorabilia worth to us as an individual, as a collector's item? You say you were in the zone shooting, and the first thing that popped into my mind, were you more of Steph or were you more of Sabrina last night? And then the wheels are starting to turn in my head, AV. I've been thinking about this project, and I want your opinion on this. Should I be buying like 10 pairs of the new Sabrina ones and throwing them in a closet so that 20 years from now we see what they're worth?
I'm not a sneakerhead like I used to be, and it's hard for me to know value-wise. I do tend to think, though, that you not only do you have good taste in shoes, but if you're actually in the game and you see what players like, what's playing well, that you have a leg up on these. Mike is showing Crocs.
I'm wearing gross ass Crocs right now. But like, if Sabrina does kind of open the door for a lot of women players to get signature shoes, right? There's been a few other signature shoes in the past. Elena Delle Donne had one, but these are the Sabrina ones. There is going to be a series of Sabrina shoes. Are we going to be looking back in 20 years being like, yo, Mike's got a brand new mint pair of the Sabrina ones, and those are worth $5,000 a piece?
I mean, it could be, but it could be, when the Caitlin Clarks drop in 2 years, it's like, why would I have not MJ's sneaker? Like I don't know how it works or if this is going to blow it up. I will say that the Sabrina ones are actually a good shoe. People talk about playing in them.
That's
NBA
what I've heard
players,
too.
WNBA players. Yeah, they like them. They have some good colorways. I mean, I do like the shoe.
So yeah, I was looking at getting a few different colorways. I was thinking about what sizes do I
Yeah.
get? Am I going to
Yeah.
potentially be reselling these to a woman who wants to play in these and get some female sizes? Or do I just go with the men's because that's probably the more of the collectors? Either way, I'll have to figure it out. Let's get into our topics this week. You always have the privilege of choosing where we start, AV. Take us on the path.
Let's start with the king. The king
Oh,
had himself a week. Let's go. I mean, we've been witnesses for a long time now. Some years our fanhood is bigger than others, but we love what he's doing, and I think we both feel pretty strongly that he's has another gear that he can get to in the playoffs, and that doesn't just mean his basketball IQ and his experience. He actually physically has another gear that he turns it up defensively, offensively. I mean, let's start with the 40,000 is sick. We'll get to that. Let's start with that fourth quarter where he banged those 5 threes and outscored the Clippers by himself. If you would have told young us seeing LeBron, either whether early Cavs LeBron or Miami LeBron, that he could hit threes like that, we'd have been like, he's obviously the best player ever, so unstoppable. It's amazing that he got to this point.
the best version of watching LeBron James is when he just starts pulling up from 30
Yeah,
deep and they're just sinking
yeah.
it time after time. He's got the swaggiest little run back, like a little penguin. He does the little eyes where he looks down and then shoots it. He does the one dribble step back. He's got all of the patented moves, and we saw it on full display, both versions, like the full spectrum of LeBron. We saw the patented one dribble spin move, bully you to the hoop, get to my left hand and put that up. That's
Yep.
exactly what he did to MPJ to get the 40K. He just noticed that Nikola Jokic was not on the court. The Nuggets were playing MPJ. Aaron Gordon was on the perimeter guarding someone else, and under the rim was Justin Holiday. Man just took one dribble to the right, did the patented spin move, and got to his spot. But a few days earlier, just pulling up ridiculous threes. It is no more fun to watch LeBron than to just pull up some ridiculous 30-footers. So I
I love it. I
more.
he patented the FU threes. I know that it's all based on his name, but like that dagger, he has like a place in history as a certain shot. It's pretty interesting. Like as a shooter, they try and teach you not to have a shooter's dribble so that it's not predictable when you're going up into your shot versus driving. And LeBron was like, "Nah, actually, I'm gonna only shoot with a shooter's dribble so that I can make this as repeatable as possible." And he's made it work. So I don't know what
And
to
he's
say.
doing that thing where he's like a little bit faded back and he's so much
Every
bigger than
time,
a
boom,
normal
boom.
perimeter defender that's guarding him. So he's going to create the space. It's like when KD goes up, there's really just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So what did you find more important? I mean, obviously the 40K is more impactful. What's like more exciting for you to watch? Or you rather
It's
watch like
it's
a
definitely the
comeback
LeBron
win?
fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to see that he still has that in. The Clippers are a real team. Alec is in the chat right now giving us updates on stats. Not only did he hit 5 threes, he was 5 for 5. He needed every single one of his stops, hits, finishes with 34, 8, and 6. I mean, that's what makes you feel like in a playoff series, who would want to see LeBron? The 40,000 is important and impactful, especially because players' careers are going to get so much longer over the years that he needs to build up that number to hold off the next
Oh,
LeBron.
hold on,
Yeah,
hold on, hold on. You
yeah,
think there's another person like this coming? I think what he just did is immediately pantheon level of won't be touched again. We are not going to see players have this long of careers. This is insane. The durability with the lack of injuries. LeBron has not only like been selected to 20 All-Star games, AV, he's started in every single one. The man hasn't had to take one All-Star game off, one All-Star break to rest. He's been ready to go in every single one. The playoff minutes, the playoff stats, if you even include those, I don't think we're ever seeing this again. And I do think we're in an era where he caught a huge offensive wave in the NBA. I do think we're going to be doing check ball episodes either this summer or early next season, talking about rule changes and some more defensive tendencies, whether that means allowing 4 seconds in the key or allowing more of a little contact at the bump. So I don't think people are going to be able to get to this like LeBron did.
Look, I mean, this is unprecedented. Part of why I say that is all records get broken. The game always changes. Anyone who says that anything's going to stay in place is either thinking more in the short term than you'd think, or is just a victim of the moment. But I'm not saying that there's another LeBron coming sooner. I know who that is. I do think though that the way that players take care of their bodies, that seasons are getting longer. I do think that we are right now, even if they dial it back a little, in a much more aggressive, high-scoring offensive era than LeBron was for the majority of his career. It's only been the last 10 years. The first
Right.
11, it's crazy. His career's been so long. But I don't have anyone in mind. I think LeBron is such a psycho in that way that he's not thinking, 40,000 is cool because I'm beating the last person. He's thinking about the next person to come up. He wants not only longevity of career, but longevity of his reputation.
So what else still needs to be celebrated with this LeBron scoring arc? Let's say he plays another 2 or 3 years and gets to 41,000, 42,000, 43,000. Are we doing this every 1,000 points? Are we checking back in at 42 and 44 and 45? What thresholds are there still left to even check off?
It's like your 40th birthday is going to be celebrated harder than your 41st and 42nd, just because it's like a rounder number. It's a bigger deal. I think that the rest of LeBron's career is going to be one big celebration of every mark he reaches, as it should be. I prefer when sports give flowers to their kings when they're still in the game, especially if they're the type like a Kobe or LeBron who would accept it versus like a Tim Duncan or maybe a Jokic later who's going to be like, I'm not even going to tell you when I'm going to disappear to my farm and you'll never see me again. But I love what's going on. I like that they still celebrate him. I think what's more amazing is what he was able to do, even though it's a regular season game when they needed him, and they need these wins. Let's be real.
They
And I'll
definitely
take
do.
it a step further. One reason that I'm discounting the 40,000 milestone a little bit, not discounting, but not celebrating as hard, is he actually deserves more credit because he has such incredible playoff scoring numbers that his combined scoring numbers are where it's at. He's been the combined leader
Yeah.
for long before he passed Kareem. And why are we taking out the most important minutes and points that he scores? I'm Team LeBron, obviously.
A whole separate podcast is that we should have is that all of these stats should be combined. It's ridiculous that Brady's career wins don't include that has freaking 35 more playoff wins than the second closest quarterback.
Yeah.
Like that's 2 NFL seasons. Like it is incredible what these guys have done in the postseason. It shortens their offseason, and yet they could do it every year and year and year. It is unbelievable. LeBron recently said that he's unsure if he's going to walk into the sunset like Tom Brady or do a farewell tour like Kobe Bryant. So I'm going to go and take a guess that if LeBron knows going into the season it's going to be his last season, there's about a 99.99% chance that we have a farewell tour for the King. Let's move on to another player who went 5 for 5 from 3 just because it's relevant and on topic. Max Strus in that Cavaliers Mavericks game in Cleveland. The Cavs are down like nearly 10 points with 3 minutes left, and Strus goes 5 for 5 in the final 3 minutes. One of them includes a 60-foot buzzer beating bomb for the dub. AV, have you seen such a clutch performance in years? What do you think when you see that ball go in from 60 deep?
I mean, talk about feeling it. That he was feeling it. Could not miss. He's getting double teams. People are coming around both sides on the screen. The big man hedging and the guy chasing him. He's still pulling up. It doesn't matter. I almost feel bad that the clip that gets circulated is the half court shot, the half court three he hits to win, which is sick. But you need the whole fourth quarter because he gets them there. It's not even a game without him. It's rare you see somebody put the team on their back and hit the game winner if they're not, the star of the team. I know that can happen with shooters, but good for him. It's the night of his life.
What did Strus's Alec? Can you look up what that Strus contract was? It seems like he earned the full thing in that night. People were giving him hate this offseason that the Cavaliers overpaid. That's exactly what they needed, is someone with a little bit of size and a little bit of shooting. 4 years, $63 million. Alec drops in the chat. That feels like right on par, if not a bargain, for a guy like Max Strus and what he's been delivering to Cleveland this year. The fact that he's allowing them to just skip that Isaac Okoro and Karis LeVert type of player. Okoro is just not efficient and not enough of a force on offense. LeVert, on the other end, takes away from what Donovan Mitchell and Garland do on offense, that you just wanted a floor spacer and a shooter. Max Strus, $14 million a year. Absolutely perfect for this Cleveland team. I'd argue a bargain, not an overpay.
I would agree, especially because of how hard he plays. You can tell he's a winner. He actually competes defensively, even though he's a white boy shooter. But I would say that people were right to question it because that's what the Heat do. They churn out these nobodies that they can turn into shooters and put in their offense, and then get other teams to overpay them. So when that team's like swooped in, to try and overpay him, I would probably also was thinking light overpay because the Heat are going to maximize him better than you could, and I was wrong.
Right. We see that with Gabe Vincent in LA.
Yeah,
Hasn't played.
I mean
I
injuries
mean, he's
hurt him, but
injured,
that's what the
but he
fact.
hasn't
Yeah,
played a game.
yeah, I'm with
AV,
you.
let's use this opportunity to remind everyone, why do the Miami Heat have the best development culture in the NBA? What's the most simple explanation that we figured it out?
I mean, Heat culture from the top down, that
Yeah, why
they have
does
the
it
best
exist?
coach.
I have figured it the fuck out.
All right, so okay, if you have the answer already, you can put me on the spot and ask me at random. But if you have the answer, why don't you teach the class?
Oh, I thought you knew this was a hot take that I often roll out, but I firmly believe this, AV. The reason why the Miami Heat are able to develop such talent is because their G League team plays in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So when you are an NBA player and your two options of life are to stay on the Miami Heat with private planes, a team chef, no state income tax in Florida, all the other jobs versus buses around South Dakota with taxes and cold weather, you are going to work your ass off. You are going to skip going to the club. The club will be there for you as long as you stay in Miami and make it to the end of the year. Those guys work their asses off because they know what's on the other side for them when being demoted to the G League. And that's why they work so damn hard, and that's why it pays off. I will never let that down. If they were to move their G League team to Fort Lauderdale or to Naples, Florida, like the Warriors have the Santa Cruz Warriors or the Nets have the Long Island Nets, you would immediately see a drop in Miami Heat talent development. I promise you.
I'm on board with that. And once you drop Sioux Falls, I did remember that you've given this take before too.
Let's take of mine. Let's stay with the Heat. We have the Heat and the Warriors absolutely surging into the second half of the season. You could have said the Dallas Mavericks too, because of the way they went into the All-Star break, but coming out of the All-Star break, certainly faltering a bit, partly at the hands of a Max Strus game winner. But looking at the Heat and the Warriors, two coaches who we've spoke about, two coaches who we've celebrated their contract extensions on this podcast for. Who do you trust more going into the playoffs, the last stretch of the season? Take into account, I guess Western and Eastern Conference.
Yeah,
and
I mean unfortunately, I think that's the end of the conversation. I trust the Heat more because there's one championship team right now. Looks like there's one championship team in the East potentially, and the Heat can always pull it together with how hard they play, how much they foul, how much they take advantage of the playoff rules. I mean, I love what the Warriors doing, and when we were on here 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how both the Warriors and the Lakers could absolutely make a run and be a tough team, whether they're a last playoff team or a play-in team, just because of their experience, their talent. The Warriors are clicking right now. They have a good schedule. It's just the West is so tough. And even if the Warriors do put themselves in form to compete, the odds are just lower because they're going to run into a contender in every single round based on their seed. That's a fact. So the Heat are the team every year when we see them in the playoffs. We say we won't discount them next year just because they take some regular season off, just because they have some injuries. And again, this year, just like every other year, people are hating on them and thinking that they can't make a run. Maybe the Bucks stop them, maybe the Celtics stop them, anyone else, and the Heat have to be favorites.
So I completely agree. We don't need to belabor it. Alec dropped to the chat that the Warriors are down 30 right now to the
I saw that.
Celtics. So I literally just went and retweeted the link of our video and said, come hang with us because the Warriors are down 30. There's no need to watch that. AV, let's revisit because I think we're going to do this a little bit at the end of the show today, some of the rapid fires. But you said to me a week ago, 2 weeks ago, you had Warriors over Minnesota. Warriors are now down 30 to the Celtics right now. Minnesota is beating the Clippers going into halftime. Do you reconsider that position at all?
I will never
the Wolves in a series.
I will never be swayed by single regular season days in this 82 game season of nonsense. That being said, there's plenty of other good reasons to bail out for the Warriors and like some of these other teams. I still stand by until I see how they use Rudy Gobert to defend in the playoffs with his drop coverage. I don't believe it yet. Once I see it, I'll believe it. I've seen things change in the league, but I've also seen him captain other defensive units to the best defensive team in the league, win defensive player of the years, and then literally get played off in the playoffs. So until I see better, plus it's a team that doesn't have experience. But look, the Warriors are just because they're hot aren't perfect. They lost Wig. If the Warriors are going to make a playoff run, obviously they need maybe not championship Wig back, but at least 80% of that. They haven't had 50% of that for a while now.
Do you have any idea what's happening with Wiggins?
What is happening with Wiggins? I thought you knew more about when he had that. He like took 6 months off. Remember,
I
there was
heard the
something going on.
rumors. I heard
Yeah,
the
the
rumors.
rumors. So is this tied to that at all? I won't. I won't
I don't
react to
even
that.
want to speculate.
Yeah, I don't either. I hope he's all right.
All right, let's go into one other individual game performance, and then we'll talk about that AI statue, which is just too perfect. Wemby versus Chet. Is it already the best rivalry in the NBA? Is it Luka or Booker still, or are we promoting the Wemby Chet dynamic? Just 3 NBA games into their careers, have they already established the best rivalry in the league?
I mean, I first of all, this is your best topic and question of the day. I love this. I think that the book Luca rivalry is sick because they actually have playoff competition. They're actually leading their teams who are contenders, and they both talk trash all game. So it is a more classic perfect rivalry. The fact that these two rookies who have never played in a playoff game is must watch television when they play each other just because they're both alien like long is awesome. It feels like the future of the NBA. And I remember every year there's one of these George Murasan type giants who comes in and you're like excited for, and then they can't walk, and you're like, oh great, what am I even watching? These two dudes can boogie, and they're so much fun to watch. Chet is contributing to a winning team. Wemby is making a bad team decent, plus putting up crazy numbers and highlights. I mean, they're beyond maximizing what people thought they could be this year.
So I think the similarities to the book Luka rivalry are that Wemby and Chet, they're not the same draft class like Booker and Luka were, but they're rookies at the same time because Chet missed a year, and they play similar positions. So they are going to be talked about in conjunction for years and years to come, and the players have bought into it, right?
Yeah.
They acknowledge it, and they are willing to run with it, and that's what you have
Yeah.
to love so much. It seems like what we are going to see. Hopefully they both stay healthy. Hopefully the Spurs put together a competitive team in quick order so that they can be some competitive games. I mean, we've seen like 30-point blowouts in both directions despite needing to watch every second of the game, because if they're both on the court, it's much watch TV. So I really look forward to that rivalry to come. I'm already going to promote it to most watchable rivalry in the NBA because of the
Love it.
players and the types of talent and just
Yeah.
how important and alien like it is that when it's on, you got to watch it. Last one, AV. Allen Iverson gets announced that he's going to get a statue outside the practice facility in Philadelphia. Now, we have to first acknowledge the elite level troll job of the Philadelphia 76ers organization, putting this at the practice. You talk about the practice facility for my statue? So I can already hear high-pitched AI voice talking about this through and being like a little bit of shade. What kind of pose do you think AI is going to be in? Is it going to be mid crossover? Is it
forget about the pose. This might actually make me mad. Depending the step over Ty Lue, yeah, depending on his involvement here and where he wanted his statue and what level of troll versus joking this is, I might get a little mad. So I know that was uh, one of the most memeable times in his career, and everyone knows that saying. But I'll let everyone watch Allen Iverson's documentary where he goes into this in greater detail. But I'm pretty sure he had just lost a close friend. He was really struggling with a tough time in his life and did not feel he needed to be as locked into the team or at practice at that time. And he was someone who had given his body, his soul to this team, just sacrificing. And to get asked a question like that when he felt and he actually was giving so much of himself to this Philadelphia organization when he was going through a hard time in his life, it sort of sucks that this has turned into a bit of a joke. He's said that in not so many words in different interviews and in his docuseries. If he wants it there and he's leaning into the joke, who am I? Absolutely go for it. But if this is sort of like a little subtle jab or shout out to that moment, then I'm pissed. And beyond that, he deserves a statue wherever the most important place to get a statue is. I'm biased. He's the most influential basketball player I've ever watched in my life as a small guard. The crossover, his handles, he's the most entertaining player I've ever seen. The most for the culture. But I don't like this if he's not in on this.
Interesting. Honestly, my first take was they probably just don't allow statues on the grounds. It's probably some like state
Then it's
or like
fine.
local order, and then it's fine. But as you were talking, I started to remember that there's like a Nick Foles Philly special outside of the Eagles, right? So we've heard of that one after they won their Super Bowl recently, and they did the trick play where it's like Doug Peterson and Nick Foles are outside the Eagle Stadium in bronze. So they're not what AI was to Philadelphia at all. So, I mean, we'd have to check. Maybe it's a difference between where the basketball arena is versus where the football arena is. I don't really know Philadelphia like that, but interesting. I honestly just thought it was funny. I didn't take it as any type of shot. I just assumed that it was more random occurrence than an actual troll job.
It totally could be. I'm saying that if it was a troll job or if it was intentional, maybe it was just a clickbaity headline too. And like you're saying, this is just where the statues go. But Foles brought them a Super Bowl, and Iverson is more important to that city. And what pose would I put? I like the Ty Lue pose, even though they lost that finals. For me, it's the biggest crossover on Jordan. The one where he takes him back, hits him the first time, sees that he has him on skates, and then hits him way out with the right to left cross. Bang. Right in the face.
So, AV, the one note we got from the Twitter audience this week was from the Boardman Gets Pod. Clear shout out to Kawhi Leonard. He writes, the Nuggets are on a tear, beating the Warriors, Kings, Heat, and Lakers. Bucks and Celtics on a similar tear. The championship favorites are making their moves up the standings right now.
Good. I agree. I mean, we talked about just because the Bucks were in a weird turmoil time where they had just replaced their coach and Dame was cold, didn't mean we should discount them. Dame got himself hot at All-Star Weekend. Shout out All-Star Game having a purpose. And they've been playing some teams.
You actually called that. Remember when we did the post pod? You were like, I think this is going to lead into Dame being a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, I think that matters. You're feeling yourself. He was with the best players in the world, and he was the best on the court. That probably matters to him. That probably feels good. And the Bucks couldn't get any lower, and the East is a mess. So everything did sort of line up for them.
So I wish I could find the full pictures of the Damian Lillard quotes from the whole lonely thing. If you read that whole article where James did you see the full quotes or did you just see the headline?
Just saw the headlines, but unless they cherry picked the headlines, didn't look great.
They cherry picked the fuck out of the headline.
Okay.
The question, he was asked something and he was talking about his family life and his personal life and just the amount of changes that he's had to deal with at once. And the reporter says, I don't mean to jump the gun or something, but it seems like this sounds kind of lonely. And then he answered, very lonely, blah, 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 blah. It's about your family and you're surrounded by people and you're at practice and people are knowing you're leaving practice and they're familiar faces for a decade. So those people end up filling you up. So without those relationships, it does get a bit lonely. The headline was brutally taken out of context, and I just think it's worth acknowledging quickly for anyone who is listening.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't see the whole thing. Plus, Dame is a real one too, so it's messed up that you get someone who's actually willing to give you something beyond cliches in interviews, and you're still going to twist it and make it clickbait. I don't blame NBA players for hating media. It's a lot of times it's a disaster.
Yeah, when you see it like that, it wasn't good. Let's bring in our producer in the back, Alec Bluestein. AB, you've been crushing it, dropping in some tips and stats. Any big takeaways that you want us to cover?
Touching on the Warriors while they were down, I think I was just thinking about them because obviously they're hot, but I'm just not really buying into the hype. I think Kuminga's emergence is a real thing, and he's going to be a legit threat, although you look at the schedule, who they've been beating, last on Thursday was a struggling Knicks team. They beat the Wizards, the Hornets, the Jazz a couple times, Pacers, Raptors, Nets, no Embiid, Sixers. So and now they're getting killed. I mean, of course, I agree with AV. It's one regular season game. You can't ever put too much weight into that. But I think they've had a benefit from a little bit of a weak schedule thus far.
The Celtics have 71 points right now. AV was still 2.5 to 74 was still 2.5 to go in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
although it wasn't a fun prediction, so we went on to another one. My first and best prediction when you asked for the second half of the season was Celtics are just going to continue to space out how far they are from the pack, and show how much of a contender they are. Plus, they're playing the East. They're nice. Like, good luck with them.
Alec, do we have any rapid fires that are worth checking back in on that we talked about earlier this season?
So back in January, before we did a pick to get the first pick. Who you picking for MVP? Most surprising team to miss the playoffs. Let's see, what else do we have?
Who do we have as most surprising team to miss the playoffs? I want to.
That was exactly where I was going. AV,
yeah.
I think you AV took the Hawks as that team.
Miss the playoffs. Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, Trae Young is out.
Trae Young agree. But then Nuggets to win it, Joker MVP.
Yep.
So
yeah. So I'm just right. Yeah.
You had, this was when Embiid was the favorite and odds-on favorite for MVP, and I questioned you, being like, "Really, Jokic?" And you were like, "Yeah, it's Jokic."
Yeah. Here we go. Thumbed up.
Did you see Caitlin Clark get the college scoring record?
I did on a free throw, which sort of sucks, but it's still cool.
Did you see the reaction
from her? Yeah, it was like nothing on the court. It was like nothing unless she reacted later. Like, it was almost like everyone continued.
Do you care less about moments like that when the person doesn't really give a shit? Because
yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
I watched that and I'm like, wait, what? Like, she just became the most scoring player in men's or women's NCAA college basketball history. The whole arena is going crazy, and then they zoom in on her face, and she's stone cold celebrating like Jokic winning an MVP and realizing that he just has more media responsibilities to do. I'm like, why should I care if you don't give a shit?
It's such a good point. I don't want to tell a player not to be themselves and their true personality, but fans want to go nuts with you, and you almost feel self-conscious going nuts when this person who it's their whole end-all be-all of existence doesn't even care. Like, you need that for them. It's one of my, I know I'm jumping around to my other favorite sports. It's one of my favorite additions recently in tennis is now tennis players will ask the crowd for more fanship, more loudness, and it gets everyone into it. You can't feel like you doesn't matter. It has to matter. That's what sports are.
If you don't agree with us on this take, if you think baseball players shouldn't flip the bat when they hit a home run, if you don't think players should bark when they get a big first down in football, then do me a favor. Stop watching my podcast. I don't need you around here. This is the most obvious take in sports. We want the players to care.
I agree with the take. I'll add, I think it also means she's a killer. She just doesn't care. She's a killer.
Yeah, that might be part of it. She's just so cold.
He spun it into a positive narrative.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree.
ESPN's online too for you.
I agree with the first part wholeheartedly, especially like other sports, tennis, getting the crowd involved. But I think it's like a nice transition too. It'd be exciting to see her take this huge following to the WNBA and make it, bring that along, make it more attractive for everyone.
Yeah. I forget if it was a Players Tribune article or an Athletic article, but there was an article pretty interesting about being, how these women's college teams get male basketball players to help them practice and pretend to be the other team and match up. Well, essentially, they have the same guys that do that there. I did that at Duke for a little while, by the way. But they have the same guys that did that there. And they talk about how close they are because they play each other. You have the same matchup every day. The person who guards Caitlin Clark every day in practice, was a good high school basketball player, has an incredibly interesting perspective. She's absolutely a killer, talking shit, calling him a bitch all practice. It's like she is. I wish she's ready for the next step.
I wish so badly that Gibby was here. AV, let's have this discussion, and I'll send him this part of the pod. If you were one-on-one versus Caitlin Clark at your peak of your basketball powers, who would cook who?
And I'm with all due respect, she's much better than me in every way. Neither would be able to guard the other ever. There was no player on the Duke basketball team who could ever stay in front of them. And sadly, they were all much stronger and better than I was. So when I got past the first person, I was getting clocked by the next person. I'm a little dude. no way she could guard me, and no way I could guard her. She's toasting them in practice. He's saying how unguardable she is, pulling up from Steph Curry range with her momentum going the opposite direction. I mean, she's crazy good.
Would you be a starter in the WNBA?
I don't think so. And I certainly wouldn't be at this stage in my career. The answer is no. You're just getting my ego caught up in this right now.
No, I'm just confused because I got another best friend who's convinced he'd be the WNBA MVP, and he's so disrespectful to the level of talent that's being had there.
The WNBA is so good. I've seen in my lifetime it improves so much. There are so many kind of magnate star players that I like to watch. When I say I mean, again, when I could score on people, that doesn't mean you can be in the league. I think you'd find a lot of sort of especially guard shorter people who are tough to guard and then liabilities on the other end and will not find their way onto a team. Jimmer is not in the NBA right now. So I don't think that that's all there is to it.
So we're going to have to save the rest of this conversation and invite Gibby onto the pod to let him try and defend himself. To his credit, for those people who do listen, who do know Gibby, because he appears on this podcast all the time, he is like 6'2", 6'3". He holds conference records. He's a college basketball player. He holds conference records for high jumping for multiple consecutive years. He holds division records for Division III. So the man can jump out of the building. And maybe he could overwhelm with his athleticism, but he's got literally a worse shot than Sean Marion's brick-ass jumper. So I'm taking Maya Moore. I'm taking Caitlin Clark. I'm taking all of these girls, Sabrina, to crush Gibby. Gibby would be a bench warmer on these teams.
Without even being here, you're talking like that. Gibby, I got you.
I'm just going to send him the clip.
Yeah.
All right, that'll wrap us up for today. Thank you, as always, for joining me, Alec and AV. We will be back next week to talk about the next week that we have in hoops. Let's see what's in store as we keep going and trudging along to the playoffs. I will be back on Wednesday to do a slate breakdown podcast and talk NBA gambling stuff. And then we'll be back next Sunday just to do a general state of the NBA. Thank you, boys, for tuning in. Everyone, thank you for listening. And as always, peace out.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.